Well, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm round of applause and welcome our elite panel for the FusionV. And I'd like to hand over the microphone to none other than the moderator of this wonderful evening, Asitha Pinnaduwa, the Assistant Vice President of the Private Bank at Nation Trust Bank. Thank you very much.
Right. Right. So good evening, everyone. And firstly, let me congratulate the Leos of Sri Lanka for organizing this fabulous event, which is FusionV, a symposium of synergizing volunteers. So I think it's great to see some of the leading voluntary service organizations in the country coming together for a common cause, so which is none other than the Leo clubs, the JCs, and the Rotaract, and the ISAC clubs. And I'm sure there are more and more non-voluntary organizations, same as these four institutions, who work tirelessly, so let's not forget them as well. So just to kick off the session, if I may put in things to context, if you look at the Sri Lankan, the population out of 22 million, about 4.4 million, we have a young population. So as a percentage, it's about 24% of our population considered with youth. And in my view, unarguably, youth of our country plays a key role. Youth have a role to renew and refresh the current status of the society in leadership, innovation, and skills. And also, our youth is expected to advance the current technology, education, politics, peace, culture, and good values. In South Asian context, the Sri Lankan youth has gone multiple cycles. I think the Honorable Minister correctly touched it. So if I may recall, 1971, 1988, 1989, we had youth uprisings. And also, not forgetting the bad patches that we had, the tsunami in 2004, and of course the 30-year brutal war that we had to go through, and the one before the last, which is the East attack. So despite all these gaps, or rather impact what we had, the Sri Lankan youth demonstrated brilliant resilience in both global and local contexts in wide range of platforms. So all our panelists who are here actually also demonstrated same set of capabilities in their respective fields. So we are glad to have you. So in that context, in my view, youth volunteers have been silently serving the nation and also making a significant impact in people's life. Some youth voluntary organizations actually in existence since 1969, as some of the presentations also attested the same. So finally, I firmly believe life it's like a game of tennis, because it starts with serving others and love all. So with that, let me move to the first question, and I would like if Theshara could enlighten us with your definition of youth empowerment and why it's critical to Sri Lanka.
Thanks, Asitha, and also I'd like to thank Leos for inviting me over here and for the panelists. And well, as far as the government is concerned, or the NYC is concerned, like you mentioned, the country's population, about 25% roughly, is the youth. So when it comes to empowerment, empowerment will cover a broader spectrum like education, access to education, access to proper training, access to financial assistance, and also the opportunity youth get to develop themselves beyond the usual paradigms. I mean, go out there and achieve what their true potential is. So the definition, I would say, it's about giving the youth, empowering the youth to go out there and explore themselves and achieve their true potential without being confined to the paradigms that is being set in by the previous generations. I think that's what the definition, if I have to give one.
Yeah. Thank you, Theshara. So with that, let me move to Kasturi. Because the youth and employment, and of course the flip side of the coin is unemployment, goes hand in hand. So in your view, Kasturi, the role of youth in current corporate culture and the management expectations. Because I would like to strike a balance between, rather than speaking about volunteering and volunteerism, I would like to bring in more about corporate element as well, because that's something our youth willing to understand as well.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, and thanks to Leo and also all three youth organizations. I think it's amazing to come together to make a meaningful impact. From a corporate point of view, I'll start from the back. You said from a management expectation. So if you give today's current climate of what Sri Lanka is going through, we've got, I think, debt to GDP ratio is in the upper 90s or mid 90s, which is tough. So what do we need to recover? We need organizations to really kickstart their growth, whether it's domestic or whether it's exports, finding new exports. Now to do this, to be fast in growth, you have to be agile. And to get agile, remember these corporates have been there bigger corporates have been there for 50 years, 70 years, 100 years. It's not easy to be agile, right? And to be that, what's the culture you need? You need a culture which is a can-do attitude, who are versatile, who have the freedom of speech, who understand what freedom of speech, like we said, not having no encumbrances about biases, I can't do it, or the structure, or saying the politics. So the youth play a big part in this. They play a big part in bringing that innovation, experimental, can-do attitude. It brings a big part, they play a big part in bringing that agile kind of workforce. It's easier said than done, and our challenge personally, when Hemas have just opened out to recruit 20 different youth, diverse backgrounds. I said get from musicians to engineers to accountants, put them out there. But we need to create the culture for them to impact companies. But they are a big part of us driving growth. So it's very important. They play a big part. And they have to have the voice to change the culture as well. So yeah, it's a critical part. It's all in their hands, and actually this is the time to get them in and help us to think more innovative.
Of course. Thank you, Kasturi. So let me take this question to Santhush. Yeah. So not to again to guess your age, because you represent multiple generations. And so what types of transition that you observe in youth in Sri Lanka during especially the last 2 decades?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting for a great panel like this, and see many organizations getting together and doing something great. And this is what we need for the country also, everyone getting together. Talking about the transition of the youth during the past 20 years, something that I would remarkably say is comparing to the 1980s, 70s. In the recent past, we see quite a strong transition due to the digital age. Right? So after year 2000, the digital forces have hit the youth, right? And that has been the result, that has been the reason for all these transitions. One area I would say, they have become more savvy as to understand how to do a thing, right? They're very curious about doing certain things. And they have transformed into individuals who are very, they're quite curious about doing things as per to 20 years ago. And they know how to do things. But they don't have the time to understand, to spend some time to reason out within themselves, why am I doing this? 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people had time to sit and have a chat with a friend. Have a chat with your mom. Mom, why are you doing this? Why should we do this? Have a chat with your father. So we had this, spare time to discuss. Why are they doing this program? Why are we doing this? Why are we taking part in this game? Why are we doing this race? Why are we, planning to win this game? All these things, the reason. But that has reduced. Now everyone is, forcing themselves to do the thing. So they are very curious about how to do it. And even in the digital phase of media streams, there are lots of solutions as to how to do things. Right? So there is a very strong transition, as in people, the current youth, they are very great in doing things, finding solutions, how to do things. Right? But we lack slightly as to why we are doing it, the reason. That's one. Then we have transformed into a space where we are very outspoken. Right? But compared to what we are very outspoken. There is so much of freedom in speech, right? So that is a space, again, there is a transition. Entrepreneurship is a very strong link. Nowadays, if you talk to a youth who's in their 20s, they don't want to do a job. Majority, they want to do something on their own. They have dreams. Right? Gone are the days where I think I believe there was a time where even our country, where our parents were saying, okay, everyone is pushing to be a doctor, lawyer, right? But now it is difficult to suppress a child. They have their own dreams. You ask the young children today, it is not a problem of them, trying to be forced by a parent to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. No, they want to be a musician. They want to be a peacekeeper. They want to look at sustainability. They want to be an artist. They want to be a sportsman. They have a lot of dreams, right? So the freedom of thinking. So we have transformed into many areas. But what is important for us to give the youth is for them to understand why they are doing this. For them to understand some more the philosophical side of life, right? And then give them the thinking as to whatever they want to do, how it would benefit themselves and the others. This is what is lacking. Everyone wants to do something, but they don't know why they want to do it, right? So it is very easy for them to transform into trends, and they follow those trends, not knowing why. So they keep on. So there is all these, they get caught to these social trends. So these are the transitions that are negative to our youth, which is, especially as a developing country. We have so much of resources in terms of human resource, of a lot of intellectuality, creativity. So we need to safeguard our youth and drive them in the correct direction to make a better country. So these are some of the transitions that you will see very strongly during the recent past.
Thanks. I think so. We have a great platform. So Kasturi actually spoke about agility, and Santhush spoke about the purpose. And with the two learnings, let me turn to Bathiya. Yeah? Bathiya, in your view, based on what Kasturi and Santhush said,
yes,
the present youth, in your view, would they take adequate risk? Because yes, we need to have a purpose. Yes, we got to be agile. But nothing will be materialized, nothing will be commercialized unless otherwise we take a risk. And especially with the new normal, of course you run with risk. Be it business, be it a volunteer organization, you run that risk. So what's your view?
Okay. Now since everybody said that we're talking in a nice sequence, it's a good question that you posed to me. So how I see it is that risk. If you take the current percentage of young people taking risks, it has gone up. You see a lot of young people wanting to take the risk and they jump in. They will jump in straight to the deep end. But the problem is, when you take risks, one thing that you need to make sure is that you stay focused. You stay focused right to the end, because otherwise that risk that you took wouldn't actually really drive you all that way to the end, because see, you need to stay focused and you need to keep driving, right?
Consistency.
Because if not, if you don't bring in say consistency to that, the risk that you took, you might not really go there. So the problem that again I see is through social, through a lot of social say the media, and through the way that the world has changed right now, the young people really find it hard to stay focused until the end. The reason for it is because you get a lot of opinions. You get a lot of opinions being bombarded, a lot of opinions. So even if you take a place like Sri Lanka, I think it's the most difficult time even for a country's leader to lead a country, because you get 65,000 opinions on the same thing, and everybody thinks that they're right. So for a young person, it's a dreadful situation. You take that risk, you jump in, and then what? Now, if you take us, we, school, then we did a higher education, we were in 2 top corporate jobs, then we thought, no, we're going to sing. So there was a big group of people who thought we were crazy, including our own, family members. And there were few who really supported us. But that big group, only a few got a chance to come and say it to us. So we kept our focus right to the end and we pushed through. Right? But now, if we were in if we were in a very present context to what the youth today have to go through, a lot of them take the risk, jump into it, and halfway down the line they leave because of the social pressure. Right? And they have a much tougher time. So it's up to the present leaders, the leadership as in everybody. I'm not talking about just one leadership. This thing. It can be schools, it can be associations, it can be companies. The leadership needs to make sure that that pressure is minimized and you let them strive, focus and go towards the end. So as much as a lot of young people take risks, most of them don't see it to the end. So this is a big problem that we have. Yes, they do take risks, but only a few of them will strive and push it to the end. So that is a problem that we need to address as a nation.
Yeah. That's great. So I can just, while you were speaking, actually, I was just thinking, what if the Facebook was exist at that time? You had your first album released in 1998. I can imagine, because as youngsters, we were listening to you, and I can very well remember how the entire society reacted. I mean, if the social media
actually
had at that time,
you're correct. Because say, if we had social media back then, it would have been really hard for us to focus. Because right now, even like say, after 21 years, we are on a show right now, and you. If you go to read those opinions, you're not going to do your job right. So you just need to take the core of it and take a little bits and pieces of that, and then make and formulate your own idea and then push through. If not, for a young person, it's tremendous pressure. Especially if you're under 25, you 80% will crack.
Perfect. So taking risk is fine, but you got to be consistent, right?
You have to be consistent. You
Exactly.
have to be You have to be focused in a deadly manner because if you don't, it's easy for you to stray off in these times.
So with that, I'll take your learnings and pose the next question to you again, Bathiya. So Santhush, you could supplement as well. How youth can evolve, breaking and define boundaries in a society to become an icon? I know both questions goes hand in hand.
Okay. So being an icon is not something that you plan to do. Being an icon, you can't say, I want to become an icon, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That doesn't happen that way. You become an icon because you have a clear vision. You have to have a vision. Like in any field, you have to have a clear vision, and you need to firmly believe in that vision. And that vision should not be about you. It has to be something larger than life, which would impact the way we do things, or which would answer to a big question on how we could do things quite differently than to what we were doing it. So if you want to become an icon, or if you are to become an icon, you need to have a strong vision, and you need to be a person who is focused at changing the present landscape of something and making it better. Right? So if you take across like sports, you take anything, people who have become icons are people who have taken the present landscape and shaped it to something much better or something entirely different, and it's an alternate pathway, or they have shaped it into being something really better than what it is. So the fundamental of somebody becoming an icon is to have a great vision in changing the present landscape of anything that you choose.
Thank you.
Say someone want to be an icon. It's you can't just plan and become one. Of course, to a certain extent you could. As I think, as you said, I think passion is most important thing. But then, how do you find passion? Can you go and buy it somewhere? No. Passion is all about understanding or listening to what your heart says. So from small days, your heart always talks to you, right? Says, okay, you like to do that, so why don't you go and try it? But then your mind says, should I do it? I'm scared, all those things. But this keeps on going. But then at somewhere down the line, you don't listen to your heart, you do other things. Then later on in life, you always repent, I should have done that, right? So you need to understand during your life, at a particular point, you need to listen to your heart and just take that risk and start doing what you really like. So when you find that moment, when you find that particular area, you automatically start build passion towards what you like. Then you need to spend time, invest in learning that art or whatever subject material or particular area that you're interested in. You have to spend time learning that, your studies to all those areas. So subject matter, you learn that. And then, of course, then you start proceeding with what you like to do. You have to put a lot of effort. Morning, noon and night, burn the midnight oil and put all your effort. But this will not get you anywhere unless you really take a couple of steps back and think how to get where I want to go. What's my goal? Where do I want to go? Okay, in my particular area or subject matter, there are so many other people. How could I, carve my own space? What do I want to do? Why am I so passionate about it? Why do I want to do this? You need to ask all these questions yourself and have a plan. Whether you're a primary school boy who wants to, who's captaining the house and who wants to build, who wants to win the sport sports meet or whether you're a cricket team, planning is a must. You need to understand your strengths, you need to understand your opponents, you need to understand what you can do, and finding that niche in the market, to all those things. So marketing, all these subjects comes into matter. Then it's your mind. You know that you're going to face difficulties, you're going to face obstacles. Training your mind emotionally to meet these things when the entire world says no, you can't, still believe that you can and just proceed forward. When you fall down 100 times, still get up and go. So that's building that emotional confidence. So when you put all these things together, somewhere down the line, you'll become someone, and some other person will say, hey, you're icon. So
Exactly.
just a way forward.
Thank you, Santhush. I think just for the benefit of the audience, I think we will not necessarily discuss about volunteerism, because probably we can learn from you about volunteering. So what we do is we discuss a wide array of topics, so that as these panelists exactly discuss about the ideas, the agility, the having the purpose, the consistency, those things we will be able to apply whatever the projects what we do, whatever the organization, whatever the policies that we adopt for the benefit of the country. So with that, let me shift my gears slightly towards to the core area of this event, which is being volunteers. So I think we can't have anyone better than Sharmalee, who represent UN volunteers. Sharmalee, so I would like to ask, what's the UN definition of volunteerism, and what are the global phenomena of volunteering that you have seen?
Okay, so let's say a wide question. Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers. Hello? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I hope that I can share some insights, and maybe before I go to the definition of volunteering, can I take maybe a couple of minutes to talk, because you're talking about the global phenomena. I would like to talk about what the United Nations volunteering is all about. So the UN volunteers is the UN entity within the United Nations that promotes volunteering globally. We have a presence in 130 countries. So very simply, that is what we are. Our main pillars will be really advocating for recognition and promotion of volunteering. We also want to see integration of volunteering into development programming. And our third pillar is really working on the mobilizing of UN volunteers. So I'll go into that very briefly, just for the benefit of the audience. If we take the advocacy and promotion pillar, we basically spearhead, initiatives that will recognize volunteering. And I think Sri Lanka has really done well in that area, because back in 2011, the UN office, along with the government and several stakeholders, we had the private sector, we had celebrities. It was really a multi-stakeholder initiative, where we initiated the Volunteer Awards, or the V Awards. It's a national level event. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it. I sincerely hope that you've heard about it, because we've by now run 4 editions, and V Awards has gone global. It is our flagship event in Sri Lanka by UNV, but it also has been recognized globally. So it has now several countries in the region and elsewhere also following and doing it. So we would really like to continue it, and what we would like to see is really that V Awards essentially is institutionalized within the government, so that it can stay, so because the UN cannot always, spare. We can give concepts, but then it needs to go, it needs to be localized and taken over by the government. That's how essentially it is. And I think it's an opportunity to thank the two gentlemen on the panel, Bathiya and Santhush, because they've been very much instrumental in helping us get it off, because an initiative like that will not really get off the ground unless you have enough of stakeholders of different levels. You need the celebrities to, be there. That's how you anchor it at that level, and that's why V Awards became a global brand. It has been recognized by our headquarters. Now, V Awards is not for the United Nations volunteers, but it is essentially for the individual volunteers who serve in the country. And through this, we have brought the most amazing stories, the most amazing volunteers that we have found through this program. So that's on the advocacy side. If we go into integration of volunteering, I think since most of you are from the volunteer community, you might know that Sri Lanka did not have a separate policy on volunteering. And back in, I can see a gentleman nodding, so he knows about it. So after several years of lobbying and hard work with the government back in August 2019, we managed to get a policy approved. So the policy has been approved, and right now we are working closely with the government to ensure that it is being rolled out. So that's actually a significant contribution and a big achievement for Sri Lanka as a country, because in the region, we joined 7 other countries that have separate policies for volunteering. Now, not every country has. So if you take Australia, Malaysia, Philippines, Korea, Singapore, those are the countries that have a separate policy. So Sri Lanka, in that sense, in the volunteering angle, has been making lots of, let's say, progress. Our last pillar of is really supporting the United Nations agencies to mobilize UN volunteers, and our volunteers are full-time workers, so it's actually professional volunteering that we do. If you give me just a few more minutes, is that okay? Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So, so basically, in a nutshell, what UNV does is really we try to champion environments where volunteerism can really flourish. Now, the definition, I think there are lots of definitions out there for volunteering, but there are 3 main elements that the UN talks about, and that's really, it has to be free will, like we say Ramadan, of course everyone knows in this country, because I think Sri Lanka is really in the volunteering index. I think in 2019, the World Giving Index, we were ranked number 1. So yeah, in terms of volunteering time. So there's a lot of volunteering out there. It's just that we don't have the data, unfortunately. So we are hoping that through the ministries, we can actually have a survey done, or, put in some survey questions into the labor force survey. So we've been doing some work. The other one is really, it has to be for greater good. So then it becomes a volunteering act. It must be for greater good, not for, your own self. And the third element is really about, with no expectation of a monetary gain. So those are the 3 elements from the UN side. But I also want to touch that. You have to remember that volunteering is not small in the global context, because according to the State Volunteering Report, there are more than 1 billion volunteers in the world, active volunteers. And that equals 109 million full-time workers. Now that cannot be discounted, because that means a huge contribution going into the GDP of different countries and nations. So I think really, if you talk of the global scenario, we have to remember Sri Lanka is no different, because there is a lot of volunteering. It's just that we are missing data. Now we saw some of the presentations of the agencies, of the work they are doing, but a lot of it doesn't get documented or collected. So we hope with the policy that we have now managed to have, and we are supporting the government to establish the National Volunteering Secretariat, which is going to be embedded in the Department of Social Services. So we really hope with these things in place, with the infrastructure, that moving forward, some of these elements will actually get captured, and the good stories, and it will not get lost from the country. Just two last points on the volunteering is really about the informal volunteering and the formal volunteering sector. So all of you who are here today are really from the formal volunteering because of, it's related to an organization very much like how UN Volunteers is. But 70% of the world volunteering happens really on an individual basis. And that's really the informal sector, and that is massive because that's the one that is harder to capture. So I think with that, I will sort of end the introduction on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharmalee, for that drilling into more technical details and sharing more insights. I think that's I think for the organizers, I think the FusionV already achieved one of your objectives because you created that synergy. Because I have been associating all four, I would say, organizations for the past so many years, and I have personally seen how much of amount of work that has gone in. I think, but personally, I don't know how many actually volunteers actually had applied for these VO awards. Personally, I'm a fan of your project.
Yeah.
Hats off. I mean, thanks to Duo as well for supporting that project. I think that's a fantastic national event. So I think that's a synergy. I think that's why the importance of these kind of events, so that we bring those elements. I mean, you comes from a more of a policy sort of a background, establishing the policy, and we have the volunteers who actually actively engage in, bring them to a common platform and bring that synergy. So I'm sure you will see more and more entries coming in from our young volunteers who are joining this program today. So with that, I think you made a very interesting point. So the informal sector is larger than the formal sector,
yes.
Right? So in that context, so let me touch, I perfectly get what you're saying. So let me touch the more corporate element towards it. Kasturi, I know what I'm up to. So what's your view about the, what's your view about the steps taken by the Sri Lankan corporates to promote volunteerism? So when I say volunteerism, sometimes, we see our organization do, I mean, corporate do, lots of activities, especially during the disaster time. So other than that, I mean, how do you see, I mean, what's your view? What are the areas that we can improve? Of course, you lead a blue chip company.
Yeah. So it's a good point. I mean, I was listening to Sharmalee and I realized as Sri Lankans, individually we volunteer a lot. So we have big hearts, and that's a good thing for a small nation with big hearts. While that's individual, with these individuals get into a corporate world or do your own business, and then you're too busy with your business and you don't have the same time commitment, or the corporate doesn't give this kind of space for you to do it because it was traditionally not in their agenda. Look at it from a corporate point of view. 15-20 years ago, it was CSR. And CSR came in forms of charity, it came in forms of supporting disasters. So tsunamis or any catastrophe, they got galvanized. But things have changed. Like I think Santhush alluded to the fact that you always have to have a purpose. I think the corporates have now embraced in the last 3-4 years to have a purpose. That is the heart, why you're existing. And that's not about money, it's about how you impact your community. And that's a social license to operate. Without our knowledge, I mean, so like if you look at Hema's, we started this thing 20 years ago about no child left behind, building schools, preschools for underprivileged or economically backward community which doesn't have a unit preschool. So the child has to go 20 kilometers or something to have access. So the simple thing of give them equality, but it was done with a charity lens. Right, and we didn't realize that how to do this. So 2 years ago, we decided we have to have a purpose, and our purpose was healthful living, meaning joyful moments for families, right? Say Unilever has sustainability and marketplace. Everybody picks one. Now what we did was, we as corporates we put money behind, so you have the IIT coming because it's a purpose. So that's IIT school is where you have children with disabilities who are given diagnosis, skilling up, and giving them an opportunity to integrate into society. It's all this thing. We also are those days, about a couple of years back or 10 years ago, we have this CS sustainability index. So you have to tick a box on water, electricity, environment. It's more box ticking versus now it's part of our agenda. It's part of our employees' agenda. Now you find employees who love the planet, who want animal rights, who want health. It's there. So organizations are forced to change, and it's a good thing purely because we invest so much in the communities because of our social license. Our employees don't see the impact because they are busy doing work, and the impact of the why you do it is not seen by the employees. So the money really and the cause of it is not known. So now companies are really pushing volunteerism and giving them pay. It's part of their job. So you can take 1 day, 2 days off, go and do it. I know the environment club goes on for about 5 weeks to knuckles or something, to plant something, and it's normal now. Previously it's like, okay, somebody has gone to the jungle, why have they gone to the jungle kind of thing. It was not like an accepted thing, it's like waste of company resource, versus now it's good for our country, just allow it. So it's a mindset the corporates have to change. While big corporates are privy to what happens globally and what's good, the SME sector and the smaller family-run corporates have to learn it. And it's learned in the sense of, look, it's your social responsibility. That's why responsibility, it's giving you a license to work. It's giving us all a cause of impacting our country for the better. Otherwise, we are leaving the country in a worse situation, whether it is the environment, whether it's the human rights, whether it's education or malnutrition. We are leaving it in a worse place if we don't take action. We can't leave everything to the government. So it's in the top of the agenda, but I must say it's in different forms. The SMEs might be not doing it as much, but the good thing is, at least if you leave corporates aside, individuals who work in the corporates are part of some movement or the other, of some fight or the other. So I guess it's now how to marry these two and make sure that these purposes are aligned together. So worst will be for us, for me as a CEO, if we have our purpose and I have a bunch of employees who really don't agree with that and want to do something different. So you need to align the employees' purpose and why they want, how they want to impact socially, and the company's purpose together. So it's a journey.
It's a journey. Perfect. Thank you, Kasturi. So with that, Shamli, I would like to turn towards you again. Why Sri Lankan youth should consider volunteering without confining themselves to career development, and how Sri Lanka as a country has demonstrated its thought leadership?
That's an interesting question. Let me gather my thoughts. Now we have 1 billion people who are volunteering globally. But it's also an interesting fact that 1 in every 3 youth actually volunteer. And these are all data coming in from our State of the World Volunteering report. So globally it means you have about 600 million youth, which is a formidable force. And it's a group that can really make a lot of difference in any country. I would like to share an experience from UNV, but before that, I think I have personally been with the UN volunteer program for a long time. I have witnessed a lot of youth, because if you take UNV is the agency within the United Nations that has really given the space for the youth to enter the organization. And this came in response to a request that came from the Secretary General to create a space for youth engagement. And UNV headquarters, they actually formed a new modality called the youth volunteer modality, which allows youth to really engage and enter the UN and gain exposure. I will come to that maybe in a minute, but before that I would like to say, having been there for a long time, I have seen lots of people who have come in as maybe on internships. They have come as, we opened a V-Force platform back in 2011, and through that what we've seen is a lot of youth have really engaged with us. Now, the V-Force platform or the volunteer platform gives an opportunity that is really for anyone who has signed up. They can join and they can support any of our initiatives within the UN. So they'll have an opportunity to gain experience, develop their soft skills, but also exposure to the development sector and what happens in the UN. I've personally witnessed so many young people who've come through that platform, who have served. I mean, we have about 15,000 who have signed up on the platform. And whenever we put a call out to that, it's very interesting to see how many people sign up. They're so enthusiastic. Just last week, we had an emergency call for UNICEF because they are supporting the government with the collecting data on the vaccination storage. So for that, we put out a call out, and we needed only about 30 volunteers from all over the districts. And we had nearly 300 who had signed up for it. So you can see the interest that is there. You know, they are all willing and able. They can support. So through this platform, we have seen many of them have grown. They first came in as V-Force volunteers. They've supported our initiatives. They've, gained their skills. And very, very important really is those competencies which you can't really see. It's not the academic qualifications. That's important, but that's more decoration, because when you bring people in, like Kasturi said, into the organization, you want them to have those qualities like, people, interpersonal, team spirit, those things count, because you need a sort of a holistic person in your office. You don't want people who only are, let's say, have skilled in one area. I think the corporate sector would agree with me, because even for the UN, we look at people, we need rounded people. We need people who can engage with communities, who can talk to the government, who can, we deal with multiple stakeholders. So you need people who can manage all those different actors that we work with. So, we have seen, they've come in, they've served, they've transitioned maybe into an internship or a UN volunteer position. Then they've gone into others like, staff positions and whatever. So I have examples of people who started as V-Force and today actually have gone as high as like heading the resident coordinator's office. So it really has given me a sense of pride and really a sense of fulfillment that we've managed to, even in a small way, give these opportunities. I mean, the UNV does not have large-scale opportunities, maybe like some of the other aid organizations that are here. But within that scope, we have, on an average, we have managed to give opportunities to about 400 to 500 youth, mainly youth, but everyone else can join even. We've had senior citizens who have volunteered to volunteer through the platform. Yeah, so, yeah, I think I'll probably end it there. Talk too much.
Thank you, Sharmalee.
Yeah.
I think just an additional question. So I think that cohesiveness and integration really matters. I mean, having watched, I'm sure you would have, eagerly watching this presentation. Do you see any scope of, working these organizations as well locally? I mean, get into more grassroots level. I mean, apart from, while having your scope, while having your organization scope, or do you see any opportunities of working with these organizations as well?
You mean working with the other?
With other volunteer organizations?
I mean, we do. We've collaborated in different forms with many of the other VIOs, or I don't know, whatever you call it, the volunteer agencies. We've had a lot of collaboration from time to time. We've worked with ISAC. We've had lots of, partnerships with Rotaract. We've done a multitude of different activities with the Scouts, with the Girl Guides. So, yeah, definitely. We are happy to work with any organization that can fall within the, framework. We are always looking for partners because the UN does not function by itself.
Exactly.
Yeah, we believe in collaboration and partnership. Yeah.
Of course. I mean, if you look collectively, if you take these 4 entities together, got a, a strong footprint across the country. I mean, from north to, north to south, east to west. I mean, they got it covered.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. So with that, thank you for your answer, Shamini. So with that, let me move to Theshara. Theshara, so my question to you is, again, stemming from the same, in terms of, the philosophy, what are the strategic initiatives and the policy decisions have been taken to enhance the youth empowerment and the volunteerism?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, and it was mentioned by various others here, that
Yeah, now.
Now it's okay.
yeah. Well, one key aspect is access to education. If I may explain further, if you look at NYSC alone, we train about 20,000 students every year. And actually in the last quarter, we added a couple of new programs such as robotics, also hybrid technology, IT, etc. into our training schedule. So this is something most people don't know, that we train about 20,000 all in properly vetted programs. And when we selecting them, we selected them on the basis that whether they can really have a future by following these courses. That was one key element that I want to be very sure of. And on top of that, we have other courses like fine arts, moving like motion pictures and all that. I mean, there's about 14 different subjects that we have carefully selected. So that's one element. So the other is actually having access to proper jobs. So jobs actually connected to the training. And in that paradigm, we are also looking at training our youngsters into jobs that are available in the other countries as well, not in the unskilled sector, but in the skilled sector. This goes along with the government policy that we want to reduce the unskilled sector to 10% by 2025. So our immediate target is to reduce to 20%. So unskilled market to 20%, and by 2025 to 10. So it's a huge task. We are only stakeholder in the segment. So we are targeting certain new focus areas like nursing, such as and also caregivers, etc. New training avenues to give our youth the opportunity to travel to other countries and make a living there in the skills sector. And then housing is another problem. And if you go into details, if you ask from the grassroots what the exact problems are, access to affordable housing is one. So not as NYSC, but I know as the government, government has a plan to provide affordable housing to youngsters, young families, and so on. And then we also have recognized youth have less and less space for recreational stuff and sporting, an area that we are heavily investing in. And as NYSC, we have started creating spaces for youngsters. We will call them integrated youth parks, where that they can come and mingle, play music, and they can do their own creations, they can spend time, they can detox themselves, etc. So we have started creating the space at least in one selected location in every district, and we will going to expand that as we go by. And also access to capital is one important thing, because when we discuss about empowerment, something we are missing is the capital infusion. That is something hard to come by when it comes to entrepreneurship and all that. And we are aware now the government is giving 4% capital loan for youth who wants to get into startups. As NYSC, we started a new program called Startup Sri Lanka. We ended the program in the last year, and this year we are about to shoot the 2021 program, where we will be providing close to 50 million capital infusion to various projects by the grassroots level youths. One thing that we see, and mentioning about the volunteer segment in Sri Lanka, the biggest volunteer organization is the Federation of Youth Clubs. I'm the chairman of that also by prerogative, and we have about 350,000 youth registered thus far, and we are increasing the numbers as we talk. So one thing that we always see that in the volunteer segment, there's lack of education and opportunities also afforded to these students, especially those who are from the grassroots. Therefore, we will be starting a program very soon that is directed to attract these youth groups, get the entrepreneurship ideas from them, and have a capital infusion to them, so they will have a sustainable business environment, such as a business that can sustain their social responsibilities, as well as that will give them the line of income to their families, and to maintain their future. So and one key element when it comes to empowerment, one thing that we are struggling as a country is actually the drug abuse. So that we can't actually in that sequence, something that we cannot forget and oversee is that. So we see two aspects to that also. One is prevention, one is rehabilitation. So as NYSC, we will not go into rehabilitation, we have decided, but we will go to prevention. And for that, not just the youth clubs movement, we are now going into schools to educate the children at very early age, and our strategy will be not to discuss on drugs and drug uses, because we have also noticed over the years the statistics has not improved, meaning that it seems like in certain areas or certain kids are getting ideas through the education to try out. So what we have figured out is actually the space that you create to socialize, do other activity, music, sports, and and other recreational matters will help them to create this space and move out of isolation. Mobile phone is one. So as NYSC, we have picked up on these areas, one to empower, the other to actually save them from the danger. So all these 6 paradigms we have selected, and we are treating them as one of our key priorities, along with the ministry's support and the government support, and those are our key priorities for the year, and those are the key decisions and the policies that we have made to the curb the matters concerning the youth, as well as supporting them in terms of empowering them.
Thank you, Theshara. Thank you very much for that very descriptive answer. So when I look at these entities, the volunteering organization as well as NYSC, what I see is growth and opportunities. I think you made a very interesting point, rather a very valid point. To break the vicious cycle of poverty, I think what we need is a CK, not the brand. It's as you correctly said, it's a capital and the knowledge, right? Because I think this, I've been a volunteer since 2003, so both of us are very much aware of it, and I think this is the one area that we can, as volunteers, that we can improve. I mean, yes, feeding them, giving providing the basic necessities, that's perfectly fine, and that's I would say it's the need of the hour as well. But I think as a volunteer organizations, I think we should look beyond that as well. And I mean, in simple terms, rather than giving feeding a man with a fish, you teach them how to catch a fish, right? So that they will be those people will be more those efforts will be more sustainable and more inclusive as well.
Absolutely.
I think that will pay greater dividends to the country. I'm sure the Kasturi can vouch for me. I'm sure. Since you're into FMCG, Kasturi, I'm sure you must be, finding very difficult to find blue-collar labor. This is what I see when I get to, speak to my clients who come from FMCG, manufacturing, how much that they, struggle to attract the quality trained blue-collar labor. Because, I think I'm not blaming in volunteers. It's just that I think as entities we should not spoon feed them either. I think what we should do is we should I think that's where the synergy comes in. We get them to a proper, because the organizations like entities like NYSC got all the tools. Personally I've been associating that entity. Another great platform. As you said, for the more than 2 to 3 decades, providing so much of training and development for the young people and creating economic opportunities. So I think that's a bridge that we can work together. Yeah. So I think that's one takeaway from this session as well. So thank you very much, Theshara, for that. So with that, let me shift my gears from volunteerism a little bit to arts. So my next question is to Bathiya. Bathiya, I would like to see how youth can use art, to improve the social and economic well-being of the society and move towards more inclusive society with equality, diversity, and harmony.
Okay, so I would take that question in how can I put it? I'll take that question in like 2 folds. One is I will take arts as something that you do for fun and a recreational thing, as you said. Other one is how do you do arts as a business. So there are two folds to this. So if you take arts for fun and arts for recreation, arts really opens up, right? Arts really opens up a lot of thought in you. As in, it helps you to go to places that you cannot physically go. Say you create a song, you create a movie, you write a book. You can let your mind, just travel to places that you can physically not go to. And when you do that, that allows you to either create love or hate, also to that kind of extreme, right? So you see how it creates hate right now in the present day and age. You see how that freedom of thought running around and creating this kind of world that is in your head, how it can create a lot of hate. Same way, art has created a lot of love, brought us together, how we see each other. And also when you go to create anything, like say a song like those 5 young people actually did. So when you go to do that, basically subconsciously art creates that platform where you can easily forget that two people are different. You start seeing the similarities. So now if you take us, when we came out of school, of course these kind of things where people used to say that Sri Lanka was only a country for X community or Y community, or we categorize ourselves as different ethnicities, was there very strongly, and when we came out of school the war was at a peak. But if you take us, when we started creating all our albums, if you take Sri Lanka Mata to Chandani Paila, Heavy Kodu, all these big hits that some of them sang as well. Now those songs were created by a very very diverse set of people. Sri Shamalangan, and then you get Nelar and Kasim, then you get Umaria Singavansa. So you get Tamil, Muslim, then you get burghers who played on our songs, who got involved in the creations, and then you get the two of us being Sinhala Buddhist. You put it like that. But then in this creation process, we lost sight of all those differences. And then we essentially sing in Sinhala. We don't sing in Tamil because we don't know Tamil. Unfortunately, we don't know Tamil. We didn't learn Tamil. If we had learned Tamil, I think it would have been much more advantageous for us as well, because then we know, more languages. But then we sing essentially in Sinhala. But whenever we go to the east, whenever we go to the north, we have a tremendous fan base, right? And sometimes they don't identify certain songs, but they know Bathiya and Santhush. They feel that Bathiya and Santhush are our singers. Ape gayako, ape denni. Kine feeling එක අපිට ආවිලා තියෙනවා. Like we have played shows in Trinco, in Patiklo, various places where you get a relatively small amount of Sinhalese people. But when we go and we sing in Sinhala, they are not singing Tamil at all. But you see the love those people have, and they see us as two Sri Lankan singers as opposed to two Sinhalese singers. So art definitely can help, a society lose those kind of boundaries that we ourselves have imagined and put out there. As I said, art creates the boundaries, art can take it off as well. So art definitely helps us to first clean out those boundaries, and then after some time, it makes those boundaries non-existent. So that is the recreational part of art. Then when you come to art as a business, I will put that out as well. About 2 months ago, I was a part of I think this was a the skill development forum. So there were so many learned, people, and there was a slide on the screen which they brought up: 125 jobs which will get lost or which will be obsolete in the next 10 years. And the best part of it was, I looked at all those jobs. All those were technical jobs, right? There was only one job which was an artistic job, which they talked about graphic design. They say that now you get a lot of apps and everything and AI being developed, that people will start losing the graphic design part of it. But none of the other artistic jobs were on it, which made me really happy because one thing is I won't lose my job, and the other thing was that showed that the power of creativity, the power of jobs which involved creativity, thinking, that can never be taken out. There were 125, I'm telling you, 125 jobs, including people who cook, chefs, because it's going to be automated soon, right? So automated kitchens. But then just one artistic job there, and everything else was just technical. So I can say that it's a safe space for a lot of kids or youth to go into, and also it's a space where you can spread a lot of love, a lot of good, sentiments, and you can bring communities together. And we have experienced it, and I shared that experience because of that. We, you can bring communities together, and it can bring a lot of bond between people. So sports, arts are two spaces that can do that for a community.
Exactly. Thank you, Bathiya. Thanks. Thank you very much for that. So I think on behalf of the organizers, let me apologize because Mr. Julian Bowling was supposed to be part of this panel, but due to he had to attend for another meeting, so he had to leave a little bit early. So actually, I had one question. So since Bathiya was touching about sports, so I thought of throwing that question to Kasturi because she wears multiple hats. Yes. So I would like to ask the same question. What sports can bring into the table?
From a country point of view, I think I'm a big advocate for unity. and I speak Tamil because I'm a Tamilian. I studied in Tamil, I speak Sinhalese and I read Sinhalese as well. So I have all three languages under my belt. And because of that, I think of myself as a Sri Lankan. And I'm telling this from a point of view as a Sri Lankan. Arts and sports is one thing which brings people together. We get colorblind, we become race blind, we become gender blind in some way. We become blind to a lot of things, and we are only there to enjoy or celebrate or work together to do something. And I think the secret of it is because you can't do it alone. I mean, Bathiya can't sing alone if Santhush is not going to complicate, and the backup singers are not there. They understand, both sports and arts, they understand the importance of hard work. They don't become stars overnight. They must be practicing a lot. The sweat they pour down, right? Same for sports. And they understand their success is not for you. If your neighbor is successful or your partner is successful, then the team is successful. If everybody, the orchestra is good, then the whole thing is successful that day. So if you have a dance troupe, you can have the best dancer. If the side dancers are flop, you will never say it was a good troupe. To see, what eventually both of these say is, you work hard, you need to work together, and it's your job to make the other one better. You don't find this in human beings in other places. You're trying to cut the other one and be better here. Versus it's up to us to say the other one also has to be good and of equal standard for us to win as a team or to be sounding better or as a troupe dancing better. So we need this. And I mean, God forbid, for the last 2-3 years, we've seen so much of division. If we can get as youth, bring these two arts things together, use it as a tool to make us all blind in every sense and focus on what's really right for the country, I think that's what we need.
Thank you. Kasturi, I think Bathiya also made a very valid point. I mean, there's so much that we can do together rather than working in our own silos. I think so. That's a good takeaway for even for the volunteers as well. I mean, yes, I think as the minister also said, yes, we have our own objectives, organizational objectives to be achieved. But just imagine how much that we can do collectively together and as a one team. Because I'm talking through my personal experience, because I had the privilege of working with many Rotaract, district presidents, many JCI senators and national presidents, and ISAC national coordinators. I mean, brilliant minds, brilliant set of individuals bring so much to the table. So I think rather than working in silos, I think if we can work together, I think we can, as a country, I think we can achieve a lot and we can do more. I think that's what the arts and sports actually.
If I could add a small thing
to
that. See, I have been, from my school days, I've been associating with a lot of, these associations, Interact, and then I was quite close to Rotaract, and then we have been also, associating with all these other organizations at some point. I'm really happy to see that you all have come together, because one thing that we saw was over the years when we were part of all your projects, it was as if all of you guys were competing to do the same projects. If say one party goes and does a project, the other party wants to do a much better project. So everybody focuses on one area, and you saw that everybody was doing one thing. But now, since you all are together, if you guys can plan out, the whole plot by sitting together, so that you all address all the issues and you all don't address a few issues and compete on those. So it's a really good thing that we saw today. So and I really hope that this works out on a long term and that you guys do good for the country, because individually all the organizations do great things, but then since 2005-6 and then upwards, we saw a little bit of competition and focus towards one area. But now if you all can do a common plan and then spread out your wings into all those areas, that I think you all can do really well.
Thank you. Santhush, let me take this question again, coming from arts. So how youth could use arts to optimize the outcome of volunteering?
To optimize the outcome of volunteering. So then, I mean, we need to understand volunteering. Why do we volunteer? Right? A person would see something and they will feel, I need to help. They will feel sad, or they will feel a particular desire, wanting to help. Right? So then they would, devote their time, get involved with the cause, and they would proceed. But now, while this is happening, others also join. Why? Some people, they have the same reason, or some they join. Here, that person has joined, so we also join. Okay. Right? With social media, this becomes more and more. For some reason, anyway, the project happens, and then you see the end result. Now, you're asking about how do we optimize the outcome, right? Now, what is art? Art is about, at the end of the day, it's about an expression, right? Art is an expression of life. So, life is about an entity having emotions. If that entity does not have emotions, feelings, that's not life. So, as art, what we do is we express life, we express emotions. So now, when you take a project filled with volunteering, with volunteerism, that we are, trying to do a project, and what is important is communication, right? So if there is an artistic expression in that communication, then there is life within that project for many reasons. On one side, for the people who get involved with the project, for the people who really got involved with the project with a reason, yes, you evoke their emotions even more and you really empower them, inspire them. Then for the people who just got involved because of whatever other ulterior reasons, they get inspired even more. So your communication now has stronger form of a real artistic expression. And then what is more important is towards the end, once we do the final result of the project, that also has to be expressed. Has to be proper communication, so that the people who got involved, who gave their time, who gave their effort and time are appreciated. Then the rest of the people who didn't get involved, they should feel these people have done something great. They have created a difference. It's because of them. Next time, I think I should volunteer myself too. So art definitely optimizes, the whole outcome. So art should be used correctly to bring out correct communication, and communication is a vital component in all the projects you all do. And so I believe definitely art optimizes.
Thank you. Fantastic. Kasturi, let me turn towards you again. So I'm sure you've been to many panels. I'm sure you've been asked the same question again and again. But for the interest of audience, because this set of group is a different set of audience, is it the first time that you address this kind of audience, volunteers? Probably, yeah, first time. Okay. So I think as a country, we take the pride of producing the world's first female prime minister, right? Still we take that pride. But if you take our own volunteer organizations, I don't think that we have produced adequate enough female leadership in our respective areas. So I represent the Leo Club and the Lions Club movements. Yes, we had a handful of female governors. I think Rotaract, I think must be Governor Gauri, maybe the first. Yeah, am I correct? Yeah. So we see that lack of diversity and taking leadership role, especially from the female, which I personally have a huge respect. By looking at how hard my wife works and cooks by looking after two kids. So my question to you is, Kasturi, as a female youth, what actions can and should be taken to manage glass ceiling and the glass cliff in corporate and volunteering organization structure. As I said, I don't want to confine this to only volunteering organization. Probably you can expand it a bit and touch a little bit on the corporate as well, because the same set of leaders will become the corporate leaders after finishing their volunteering tenure.
Yeah, so I have not. I've not spoken on volunteerism in these. I've addressed Leo clubs and road tracks and stuff like that. So just to let the context, glass ceiling, people know it is about a barrier in progressing, and your cliff is where necessarily it's not a female, but they put a minority, anybody where you think the odds of succeeding is bad, and you put that person in there, and generally they put women there, and if the woman fails, they quickly replace it with a man, and generally, and if the woman succeeds, they take the credit that they took a
for empowering that person. Yes.
When you said that, it's definitely I was not on a glass cliff when they put me on this role. So to break this, what do you need to do? Now remember, all of you all are youth. You will eventually go into your own businesses, or you will start working with a corporate. You need to, there are biases from the corporate side, from people's side, and from us as women as well. Like he said, his wife works and makes sure the home is kept, right? So that's where the inequalities happens. So we have a policy at HEMAS, we are unequal. We have very women-friendly policies, and I purely say the day it's equal at home for the women, I'll make equal policies here, because we can't solve the problems at our cultural issues at homes, right? But the problem happens not only now, the thing is we've addressed it and said the women to want more. They do want more. But personality development has to happen, and I'm glad that you're doing so much at NISC. My personality came because of the sports field, and I had a purpose because I singularly want to succeed for my kids. I needed to bring that salary home for my kids. So when you have that purpose, like you said, you don't care a damn what you have to do your job, be excellent at it, and you go home. And you don't care about politics at that point. But everybody doesn't have that. So you need to be having that wherewithal to go through if you believe you can do it. But on the other side, who sits? Majority if there are men. No offense, but most of the men who sit there, their wives are who are at home, stay-at-home wives, right? And for them, they see a woman as this female role who is soft-spoken, who is there caring, nurturing, and it's very tough to switch that role, focus and look at this woman as a corporate who can be assertive, not aggressive, but assertive, and take decisions. At home, you kind of consultative versus here you take a decision. So it's really tough on the man as well, and I'm not finding fault. I'm sure it's tough because we, as parents, bring up our sons to say you're the breadwinner, and bring up our girls to say, look, you make sure you qualify and look after your husband and keep the food there on the table. So it's a mindset change, but I'm telling you, I see now the younger generation, and I'm so glad to see the young men also say, I want a wife who wants a career, wants something for themselves. So my message to the youth, whether it's young men or women, women want figure out what you want. You can't be, a career is not for everybody. You may be wanting something else. Maybe you want to pursue arts and just you don't be allowed to do that. And pursue it. And others' biases shouldn't trouble. And the young youth, the guys, I think you should give up your biases. Don't think the woman is only is a nurturing person. Don't think the woman has only job is to make sure that the home is looked after. If a woman is a bit assertive, don't label it as it's a bad thing. It can be an okay thing. And the biggest bias in a corporate or any place is the thing which we say affinity bias. That is when you go about after. So I struggled when I was handling maritime and logistics. I was the first female at that time. And I had to take a call because the deals happen at drinks and cocktails, and then they go entertainment and all that. My kids were young, so I had to take a call. How can I be the CEO and be who I am? And I would smilingly tell my Chinese partners, say, look, after drinks and dinner, do you mind? I'm going home because my kids are waiting. You're going to enjoy yourselves. And, once or twice, once you laid it out, nobody found fault with me. So you have to make sure that, and when we go out there, we also try to be one of them. So that, and guys don't know how to deal with it. So it's a adjustment, give and take, find your space, and be true to yourself. So we need support from both sides. Any gender has to adjust and let the other person succeed. It's not an easy journey. The good thing about Sri Lanka is I don't think we have this glass cliff story. We don't put people to fail. I mean, for all my roles, I must tell you, now I can say, for my functional role, the first MD's role was in 2011. I had a mentor on from 2009 from India. He used to fly, not at all cheap. And the same mentor, when I went into pharma 1 year before he came in, asked me what I need, what are my things, because internally I also was scared, because it was, no woman had done it before, kind of, even the pharma trade. So you need help. Don't think, and when I took the board position, or when I became group CEO, the board needed help to adjust to me. You can see that I am quite outspoken. And they also needed a coach to help them to understand who this Kasturi is and how to handle her and get the best out of her without labeling her as a woman who is commanding the board. So it's a lot of adjustment and lot of, you need a coach, you need to understand you need help, and don't lose your true essence in the journey.
Thank you, Kasturi. That's fun. Sure, please.
Say, we have a group of companies, and one of those companies actually do a lot of work for Kasturi. So I experienced, she was our client. So I started to do a lot of work with her maybe about 3-4 years ago. We started this, and I must say that I work with a lot of men. Most of the other CEOs, we work with a lot of men, and she's the only female CEO that who we worked with at that point. And she's by far, I'm not actually exaggerating it, she's by far the easiest to work with, because all her meetings are quick and she comes up with the quick decisions. And also any kind of meeting we have, it won't last for not for more than half an hour, more than 15 minutes. So I must say that then any men that we work with up to now, she's been by far the most easiest and the most focused in order to work with.
Congratulations.
No, I'm not saying that compared to rest of the men, compared to the rest of the men, she's far more
no, he was very clear.
focused to the point. She's far more focused to the point.
Trying?
Great. So I think that's a great learning. I think the same message should be taken even for the volunteer organizations as well. So if you had noticed, we had 4 speakers, all representing 4 different clubs. No disrespect. Perfect, presentation. But I wish, if you had, one female, lady come and representing, would have been nice. But anyway, jokes apart, I think volunteer organization, I think we also should look at that, bringing that diversity, because personally I have seen so many fantastic, brilliant, female leaders. I would say maybe not as a, function leadership title, but, they had the leadership traits, or rather, leadership qualities, but never took up the, the greatest challenge of becoming the district president or the national president, whatever your respective organizations call it. Somehow, just simply drop the baton halfway through. So I think that's a great message from Kasturi, that we should, as men, as male leaders, we should, encourage that diversity in our own respective areas as well. Yeah, I think with that, I think we can take a couple of questions. Can we take about 3 questions for the interest of time? Yes, we have one question. Do you have a mic? Yeah, you can just.
So when you said the present day youth gets a lot of opinions, which I also do get from my home, from my friends, from the rest of the family, because I started my own business. From the point I left school, I went to do my degree, and then while doing the degree, they were forcing me to get a job. After the degree, they were forcing me to get a job, which I refused, and I'm happy about that. But then again, a lot of youth find it very difficult to figure it out, because like you said, they get a lot of opinions. What advice would you give as help for them in order to identify which opinions to take and which ones to drop? Because life is too short, you can't trial and test everything. So it's very short time. We need to figure out what is correct and move forward. So what advice would you give for us to make it?
It's a very, very tough, advice to give, because there is no proper formula for that. But there are two sides to the story, right? One is, I would actually answer half of it, and I'll get Santhush also to answer half of that question. So basically, there's two sides to it. Now, say for example, when you get a lot of opinions, the first thing what happens to a person is that those opinions strike your heart. You become very emotional about those. It's either good, bad, or it's usually wow or bad, right? So then you suddenly start getting emotional about it. Why do you become emotional about it? Right? Because, see, what happens is when you get involved in a project, you fall in love with the project as well, or what you want to do, you start, really, having that kind of on with it. But it's very rare that a person can have like an on-off switch where your objective, when you're focusing on it, and when you want to really drive it, you're very objective. And then when you're basically enjoying it, you switch off and you become emotional about it. It's very difficult for people to learn the art of that. So we try to do that from day one. Just to give you a small thing, if I can give you a small example. So when we started out, we were very young. He was only 21, I was 22. So here we are, we try to quit everything, and people were saying, okay, some were saying good, some were saying don't. Then we started this whole Bathiya and Santhush. And then we got good opinions, as in good advice from both his parents and my parents. But then it was too much. It was not our thing. At the end of the day, then it was, parents, relatives, brothers, sisters driving this whole business for us at a certain point. So one day we called each other and we went and met at a small coffee shop. And we had a chat and we said, okay, let's just put a stop to this. Just two young people doing their part. It would have been done like that if we were, at his age. But then one day we called our parents to our house, and then he also called his parents to my place, and we said, look, you guys can advise us, but then this is our space. And we started focusing on it. And then when we got a lot of, people saying that, you all are destroying the culture. You all are destroying this. What are you all doing to, our Sri Lankan way of art? It's very easy to get emotional. It's very easy to get upset, very easy to get angry. But then what we generally did was we sit down and we break it down. Right? So we used to always ask ourselves the question, okay, where are we destroying the culture? But then when you go to analyze it, some statements are completely off. There was one statement made by one gentleman saying, "Megolo Sinhala Bhashawa හරියට සින්දු වල පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ නැහැ." ඕක තමයි යාගේ තියෙන articles වල. So what we thought, we started looking at it and we actually thought, yes, this is right. And what other way to do things, we went and invited him to come and write songs for us, and he is our biggest songwriter today. Unmadani, Chandani Payala, Kirikodu, Ilaren Kasim. Right? The way he wrote articles towards us, anybody would have thought we'll go and bash him up. Right? So you have to have that on-off switch where you can take things on the, on the surface of it, keep it away, and you really don't have to get into any sort of, mishaps with people as well, because if you have that on-off switch, it's very easy to stay focused. It's very easy to smile at certain things when there is no base to it. You don't get angry, and then you can have clarity and move on. So that's my take on it. Well,
Yeah, I would say most often, I mean, whether it's 20 years ago, 100 years ago, or currently, or years to come, suppression, criticism, that's always there, right? Just that it's always in different forms. So 20 years ago, yes, we faced criticism. We faced severe criticism. I can remember one day I came home and then my mom showed, you open the papers, entire two full pages, right? Basically, the biggest, most profound musicians and literary people in the country have broken the page into 6 parts, and they have just basically slandered us, saying that we are ruining the Sri Lankan culture and the entire thing. So mom was furious, saying, "What are you doing? Can you go back and study, finish your degree? What are you doing?" She was actually very, very concerned because, I mean, it was too much for her. Right? So we went through different things. I mean, today it will be the digital media, but during that time, when you see you're slandered in the national newspaper with a full spread, that's also quite a big force. Then all your relatives call, right? And what is this? What is he doing? What is this? Why can't they do something else? What is this? That's not. So there is a lot of pressure comes. When at that time we went through a lot of pressure, and after getting into the industry, when we realized that it is difficult to sustain, that was even more pressure, right? So pressure is always there, right? Even if it's digital media, it is there. Only way that you can survive is, I think this entire discussion spoke about that. Why do we start doing what we want? That is the key point. If you don't start with the correct reason, if you don't go to do that project because of the correct reasons, then you will fall. You'll be crushed. Most important thing is to start doing what you want to do because for the correct reasons. We didn't do this for fame. We didn't do this for money. We didn't do this for any other reasons. We did this for a sheer reason, right? We felt a certain need in the music industry. We felt we wanted to really change the sound. We were searching for that. And eventually, obviously, we grew up in our entire, until 20 years from the 80s to the 90s, we didn't hear a Sri Lankan sound which had an international, feel to it, right? We toiled for that. Our entire generation felt that hunger for a Sri Lankan sound which had an international appeal, right? So there was a reason, and we want to do a difference. We want to create a change. So same way, a person who's doing whatever, say art, music, sports, a write-up, business, whatever, right? You will face criticism. But if you have a passionate reason, wanting to create a change, wanting to create a difference, and if your heart says, no, this is what you want to do and you're passionate about it, then you start doing it. People will say, you're wrong, you're this, you have all this criticism. So when you get that, then it's a matter of you going back, take 2 steps back and then think, okay, this person is saying so. What is wrong in this? What is right in this? Ask yourself, am I doing the right thing? Then when you look at this opinion, most of the time what you hear is, you ask them, okay, so what is wrong in it? Then their answer is, well, there is nothing, there is nothing wrong in it, but it's not right. This is the answer. When they can't find a rational reason to put you down, right? They will always say, no, it's wrong, it's this, that. They will give all these, other very fancy things, literally to put you down, right? But then when you really ask the core, what is wrong? There is no answer. The answer is no. It's not right. නෑ ඒක හරි නෑනේ. නෑ වැරද්ද මොකක්ද ඒකේ? නෑ ඒක හරි නෑනේ. හරි නෑ හරි. මමත් පිළිගන්නවා හරි නෑ. වැරද්ද මොකක්ද? There is no answer. That means now you're treading into a cultural shift. You're changing into the area of, you're changing a process. You're changing the thought process of people with whatever you're doing. That is why they are reacting like that. If they say, no puta, don't do this, this is wrong, right? This is the context, this is wrong. Then yes, take two steps back and try to, adjust it, because there is something wrong in it. When they can't find something wrong, it means you're doing a change, there is a paradigm shift in your thing. Get more guts into you. You're going on the correct path. But always talk to yourself every day. Am I doing the correct thing? Am I doing the correct thing? If your heart says, no, this is not the correct thing, then shift paths and find your own place. But you have to be very strong, and move forward, and then finally, what? You want to create a difference. So the courage to be different. So that's the only way you could move forward and do a change.
Yeah, I think you got a very precise and descriptive answer. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just a very, very brief response from my side. I would of course say, please volunteer, because that gives you the avenues, you get openings into different areas of work, and that will help you to decide whether this is my passion or this is not. I've seen youth who have come in to volunteer with us, who probably studied law, and then they've come and done a short stint with us and realized that, this is where their passion is, and that law is not what they want to do. So kind of that gives you that, opportunity to explore other areas and really find your passion. Yeah. So.
Thank you. We'll take one more question. Yeah. Can we have a mic, please?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So my question goes out to Theshara, the Youth Council Services Chairman. So I'm actually representing the LEOs of Sri Lanka. So my question is what kind of a platform or what kind of an opportunity can you create for all the youth movements that have gathered together here to collaborate or synergize and work together, if that kind of a thing is possible? Thank you.
Well, sure. Actually, as per the terms of the Youth Success Council Act, actually, I as the chairman can first of all register all of you under Youth Services Council as volunteer organization. That's one thing. But when it comes to the synergy, actually, I already spoke with the minister that we can allow you space to work together, and also allow you physical space actually inside Youth Services Council, so that we can work together on common objectives, common topics. Also, we can together start with organizing an international event where that we can also invite international participants, also the sister organizations of you all in other countries, etc. So certainly, as one of the apex bodies to look after the youth spectrum in the country, we believe in working with the private sector and also work together with the stakeholders in the industry. So that's one reason why when it was first discussed and entertained the idea of having this kind of forum, we encouraged it, and certainly we would want to have these kind of engagements. And I mean, irrelevant the taglines, the names, and the organization names, at the end of the day, we are referring to one family, the girls and boys, the youth from the families of Sri Lankans. So it's relevant to us from the government's perspective, the organizational names, etc. So we see at the end of the day, if we have more wings, more arms, we will reach out to the finer nuances, finer corners of the country, and you might have excelled in certain executing your tasks in certain areas, certain geographies, certain subject matters over the years than some others, including ourselves. So if we can put these combined effects, synergize this, we understand that's the best way that we can get the best out of our contribution and the investment, because we actually believe competing in the same industry, like it was mentioned in various places, that it's a waste of investment at the end, because at the end of the day, this money that we put and the effort we put belongs to somewhere. It has to be generated, and we want to save that capacity and put that in the right places. So this is the right beginning, and very soon we can allow you to work under one roof. We can call it one-stop shop, something like that. And we will also invite other multilateral organizations as well, and we will provide them space also. We have already spoken to some of the embassies where they also have youth organizations and interest groups, etc. So that's somewhere we can start working, and once we start going that journey together, we can together explore where else we can chip in and find our way together. Sure, please.
Can you all hear me? Okay. Just to add to what Theshara said, so actually we are going into supporting, working in collaboration with NIVC to create youth volunteer centers across the country, and we've just kind of received the funding for it, and moving forward, that's some of the things we'll be doing. So we'll be looking at hopefully schools, universities. We are trying to look at all of that. I think what would be very a win-win would be, in the end, if we can somehow ensure that volunteerism is somehow embedded either in the school curricula and the university, because this is something that has not been there, and so important, because it really helps for personal development, to develop people. You really see that those who volunteer, there is such a difference. So I think it will be a real win for the country if we can achieve that, but one step at a time, and hopefully we can do something. Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Just to very briefly summarize, what we discussed. I know I wish we had this discussion about 15 years back. I mean, so much of unity, so much of collaboration among different functions, different entities, but so I think in this trying times, we got to be, it's absolutely critical even for a organization, even for a volunteer organization, to have that crystal clear clarity on the purpose, on exactly what we want to achieve, and be in love with what we do. That's core of what we do, irrespective of the volunteer work or the paid work. So that is what is critical. And also, especially during these trying times, being agile. That's what Kasturi was basically speaking about. And the infrastructure what we have, be it from international organization, be it from the local the regulatory bodies, or rather from the policymakers itself. So we have so much of resources, and also we have the youth, the 4.4 million youth, which can really make a significant difference in this country. I know I sit on the political office, but I always make my point, always simply, we can't blame the politician and say, hey, look, politician did not do these things for me or for the country. It's us as citizens, as young people, it's our responsibility to make things happen, rather than waiting until someone else to do the job for you. So let's get the maximum resources what we have, be it international, be it local, and let's bridge that, let's build those bridges and take that cohesive approach, and let's collectively win as individuals and as countries for a better future. And Sri Lanka, we can and we will. So with that, thank you very much to all the panelists as well as the audience as well. Thank you.